how wanting to die made me finally live and love and thrive. Oof. Confucius said, we have two lives. And the second begins when we realize we only have one. And in 2017, I started contemplating ending my life. I actually made one of my first YouTube videos about it a year later and shared what had happened. I remember when I released that video, instead of support and praise, instead of people checking on me or seeing if I was okay or seeing it as brave or courageous, majority of people in my world stopped talking to me. Stopped calling me, even started gossiping about me. And for whatever reason, I was probably very disassociated, as it took a few years for me to really come out of those ideations. And yet, for whatever reason, I used this response from them as inspiration to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn about human behavior, about emotional suppression, about avoidance, about the body and the mind, everything from gut health to the power of the story that we tell and the words that we speak, right? But let's backtrack for a moment. It was the day after my 30th birthday. I had just spent 3 weeks in Bali. I thought I was starting some kind of relationship with a gorgeous man I'd met in a very fated way. I was in the best physical shape of my life. I felt healthy and excited. And I'd been encouraged to throw myself a birthday that most of my closest friends didn't show up to in the end. And that night, I drank a lot of alcohol, even though I wasn't drinking much in those days. I woke up to a message from the guy saying he wasn't interested in having any kind of relationship with me. And I remember walking around my little apartment that morning so hungover in my new purple bikini, crying so hard I was not able to breathe properly, and catching glimpses of myself in the mirror looking really, really amazing. And thinking, how the heck have I been single for almost a decade? How the heck have I just been rejected again? How did I get here? And the haze of the poison from the alcohol was disconnecting me so much from myself that I felt like my soul was no longer in my body. I, at this time, had been sharing self-development and things I'd been learning for about a year. And even though I was pretty distraught on this day, I was always thinking about doing more of and applying more of the self-development that I've been doing. And yet in this moment, it was like I couldn't remember anything I'd learned to apply it. And that really scared me. I remember slipping to the floor in the kitchen and thinking, which is going to be worse or easier? Doing it right here in the kitchen with something in one of those drawers, or swimming out as far as I could into the ocean? Which of those options was going to be easier on my friends and my family? When would anyone even notice that I was gone? I reached out for help that day and no one wanted to be around me in this state. I got a lot of let's hang out when you feel better responses from multiple people. And I kept coming back to maybe I should just do it. Luckily, I get really stuck in overthinking, which is probably the thing that saved me, even though I'm now a recovering overthinker and I teach others how to do so as well. Because on that day, hours passed, and at one point, I pulled out my pen and paper and I wrote a poem. I don't know where I got the idea from, but I wrote words of strength, of choosing to stay, even though the poem was pretty somber. And I knew that I needed a picture to go with it. This is how my mind works, even in these moments. And for years at this point, I'd been setting up my camera to capture pictures of me for years because I never had anyone with me to take them for me, to share online and share what I was learning and share inspiration and share self-development. And so on this day, I went into my empty spare room of the apartment and set up the camera and thought, well, what should I do? I don't want to show my face. I've been blubbering, crying all day. I'm still crying so hard that it hurts. And so, still in my purple bikini, I crouched on the floor and curled up in a ball. I remember the video that I took of that moment to screenshot an image was about 10 minutes long, because once I got in that position, I cried even harder. And in the image, you can even notice that my sides and my back are heaving and aching. And I realized that I couldn't take my life. Like so many women that I know and have talked to since about this, I knew that I could never do that to so many people that I did care for, people who would be impacted by my action for the rest of their lives. In the haze of the poisonous alcohol lifting more now, I felt my soul starting to come back into my body. That glimmer of a reminder of the strength that I had built over the last few years. But still, that morning had been terrifying. How could I move forward now? I'd never come that close to leaving before. I'd never even entertained the idea of actually going there and wanting it so bad. And now I was here. None of the problems had changed or been resolved, but I had a little bit more energy to get up off the floor. I remember I spent that evening assessing how I got there and thought, okay, no more alcohol. Time to step back from maybe giving so much to all these friendships that weren't capable of giving back where they were at. Time to learn and turn a lot of the things that I was doing off and only fill my body and my mind with things that would be beneficial, from foods, drinks, to information. And over the next 6 months, I remember devoting so much of my time, any moment that I had, to this process. In this time, all of my friends fell away. I stuck with it. I pretty much only listened to podcasts from the OG, Tony, Abraham Hicks. I only spoke with my family. I taught yoga to those who came along. It was a pretty isolating time. I spent time with new people from time to time, completely sober. And I decided I wanted to find a way to help people in more of a way than teaching them yoga, as is what I had been doing up until that point. But I wanted to work for myself online, to be healthy and heal my relationship hurts so that I would be an amazing wife and mother one day who doesn't pass on as many toxic patterns. Of course, we're never going to get it right in parenting, and we can do our best. I had no idea what I was going to do or how, but I started following the hints and the crumbs that I started noticing because of that space that I created, because of that decision to get up off the floor, because things got that bad. And I remember that New Year's, I walked out of a bar just after midnight, completely sober, having bumped into and then walked away from the guy who had rejected me months earlier. I looked incredible. I felt incredible. And I went for a post-midnight swim in the ocean, sober and alone. And I felt something insanely powerful and magical was taking hold of me, that my life would never be the same after that. What I didn't know about is something I remind my clients of a lot, is that sometimes what we're asking for, we're not ready to let in yet. And what we get first is the letting in process. And my letting in process would take the next few years. I thought I'd already been through hard stuff at that point. I had no idea how many more challenges I would learn I could overcome. I would have these thoughts of ending it a number of times again after that moment. Only each time I knew that I wouldn't actually go there. I knew it eventually would pass. I knew how I had come to a point and ability to even consider those, because it was usually alcohol related or not taking the actions towards where I wanted to be. And whatever was happening that was bringing them to the surface was coming from within me, which meant I did have complete control. And anytime they did happen, I knew that it meant that I could have an even bigger breakthrough than any of the ones before. I know now how much things like immune health and hormone health and gut had to do with this low thinking, and how much the awful programming from society that's experimented on our generation was leading me to create many unwanted situations in relationships or friendships and finances and health. I knew enough not to blame anything for those programs that we have been installed with, but to turn it around and ask, how can I change them? And during this process, there was shock from so much grief and fear, and a lot of this isn't fair along the journey of realizing how much I had to change in order for me to get the life I decided I wanted, how much I had to change when I thought I was pretty great as I was. And I was. And we can get so much better. And again, I would choose to swallow my pride and my ego and evolve who I was to get new outcomes. And even when no one around me seemed to have to do the same work, even though I'm sure people do in all their own ways, even when no one who hurt me seemed to be having challenges like I had, of course, they always do. You just don't usually get to see it. It was years of pushing and dragging myself off floors, years of trial and error when no one was really talking about this stuff, that I was learning and applying it and watching it work. Tens of thousands of hours spent on health and education and growth. Tens of thousands of dollars spent on health and education and growth instead of having a life like everyone else my age. And anytime I tried to go, screw it, I don't need to do this work, I can be normal. I can just go to a party and get a normal apartment and fill it with nice things and go out on dating apps and ignore this personal development thing. Well, that's when I got a real brick to the head. If I attempted this for too long, something would always happen so radically that I would have no choice but to do what I did in 2017 and create a massive overhaul and laser focus on doing the work. And so what if your life is hard because you can have a life that's 10 times better than what you have? It's hard to create a driver to do something about it. Almost as if there's an invisible team of people tasked with helping us keep on track for this ultimate goal. That's what it felt like for me during this time. This is why I wanted to tell this story. Because I would love nothing more than to be normal most of the time. And I know I hear this from so many women who do this work. But we're not. We're weird and odd. I'm calm in chaos. I feel so deeply that it makes a lot of people uncomfortable and show their deepest shadows sometimes. And I'm a brave leader who knows how to help people create transformations like I have. I wonder if you can too. Because after all, I had no idea what or how I was going to create a life of freedom back then. No idea. That desire was born out of one of my darkest days, as desires usually are. What I did was I followed the thread and kept following it and created space to follow it. I started a wellness business, which not only helped me heal my chronic health issues, but also I started seeing how I could build income online and learning about it. I learned about money. I spent thousands of hours learning so many skills. I learned how to build websites and branding and do sales, and I studied relationships and communication. I learned how to reprogram my own brain and other people's who are willing. You have to be willing, right? Things that we could have been taught about in school, but we weren't. All of this was helping me make sense of the world as well, which was helping me be calmer and more at peace with the things that had happened and anything that would happen after. And then I started helping people meet their soulmates and heal and build beautiful relationships and marriages. I was helping people to heal their health issues like I had. I was helping people to make better strategies for their money, designing out new businesses for amazing healers and teachers and artists who have skills that now serve the world. I learned to invest in growth. I invested so much into becoming a coach I am now proud to be, and not just a cheerleader, as a friend of mine asked if that's what I did recently. No. But someone who understands the mind and our language and the unconscious and how to recognize people's limiting beliefs and how we limit ourselves. I love to combine those things with all the best strategies I've learned about building business foundations and a happy life. Plus, I get to work with my very open intuition and creative genius when it comes to seeing all the cracks in an online business so that we can move it forward and take it from failing to thriving and making lots of money and impact, of course. All because I wanted to end my life. And I say that not because I want some kind of pity or that must have been so hard, but to maybe invite you to see the hardest things that have happened or are happening as an invitation to a totally transformed life, as an opportunity to use them as fuel to boost us into a totally new reality. That's what I did. Into a life where I love hard, no matter how much it triggers or challenges people, where I live the way I always wanted to live without apology or guilt, where I'm so happy and I get to nourish and go to even deeper levels of supporting my incredible body to become, to be a stable partner, to have healthy babies when the time comes, and to live life where I am really able to design my time around those I support and those I love most. You don't have to know the how ever. You don't even need to know the what you will do to get there necessarily, but you do have to get clear on that ideal vision, that ideal outcome. Otherwise, you're just going to be blindly creating your life that could be hurting yourself and maybe others. The more crap you've been through, the better, if you choose to use it. And the incomparable Nietzsche said, to live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. And I've often said, life is going to rock and roll your ass, whether you choose to create the life you love and that you ultimately desire or not. We may as well find meaning in the suffering that we've had and create a dream life. so the suffering was worth it, right? The world is full of suffering, and the world is full of people overcoming it. It's a choice. What will you choose? If you want to chat about this episode, require support, you can apply for a chat with me or come and join us inside the academy. Oh, that rhymes. And until next time, choose it, create it, enjoy it. And if you need help, come and join us in LRA.